Okay, in case you can't read, because it's so colorful, it says the Gini coefficient of wealth distribution, and we're gonna describe what that is.
Okay, so we researched the Gini coefficient of wealth distribution, and what it is it's a way of measuring the income inequality in a country. The values of the Gini coefficient, they range from 0 to 1. If the values are closer to 1, that represents a country that has more unequal distribution of wealth, and if it's closer to 0, that means the wealth is more evenly distributed. If the value is exactly 0, that means that the wealth is exactly evenly distributed. Okay, so the Gini coefficient is found by graphing what's called the Lorentz curve on a graph that the graph is of the cumulative share of income earned for each cumulative share of people ordered from the lowest income to the highest income. So if you go to 20% on here, that means this would be the lowest 20% of income and the cumulative share of income they have. So wherever this would be on the vertical axis, that's how much share the 20% of bottom 20% would have. If you go to 40%, it would go whatever the bottom 40% has. And this curve is compared to what's called the line of absolute equality, which would be if the wealth was absolutely evenly distributed, which is why it's a 45-degree angle, because if the wealth was absolutely evenly distributed, 20% of people would have 20% of the wealth, 50% would have 50%, and so on. And so then how the Gini coefficient is found is you find the area between the line of equality and the Lorentz curve and divide it by the total area under the line of equality. And this is when calculus can come in. If you have a large population, sometimes the Lorentz curve can be accurately modeled by a polynomial function or a exponential function, and you can integrate the Lorentz curve, subtract that from the area under the line of equality, and then divide that by the total area under the line of equality, and that's how you have the function.
Alright, so we provided a map, and you can see there's green and red and pink. And so the darker green, the closer it is to like dark green, the more equal it is, the distribution of wealth is more equal, and the closer it is to the really, really dark red, the less equal it is. So we also provided a chart, and if you look at the chart, the first one, it's kind of small, but the first one is Lesotho, and it has a Gini index of 0.632, which is really, really high, which means it has a very unequal distribution of wealth. And if you go towards the bottom, it's Slovenia, which is it was a formerly communist nation, so it was more equally distributed. So it has a Gini coefficient of 0.237, and we put the United States on here, and we're number 44 out of 145, and we have a 0.45 Gini index, which is pretty high. Of all of the developed countries, we have one of the highest Gini indexes, and so we did a practice problem with an imaginary country with its wealth distributed with the curve x to the 6th. So you can find the Gini coefficient for that country by taking the area between the two curves, between the line of absolute inequality and x to the 6th, and dividing it by the area under the line of absolute inequality. So if you take the area under the x to the 6th, it becomes 1/7, because x to the 6th integrated from 0 to 1 is 1/7 x to the 7th from 0 to 1, which is just 1/7. And the area in between the two curves is 1/2 base times height, because it's a triangle. So you get 1 times 1 times 1/2, and then you subtract the 1/7 because it's what's in between. So you get 5/14. So if you divide 5/14 by 1/2, you get 5/7, and you get 0.714. So this imaginary country has a very high Gini coefficient. And that is our project.